Hello, everyone. Welcome to our third edition of the Third Days presented by ISQI. Today is our last day of this week. It has been a very long week and very exciting at the same time. We have had many presentations and we are very happy with the response of the audience. Everyone has been quite excited as well as with everything that we are promoting here. And as I have said before in the other transmissions, this year it's quite different for all of us. We are all in our houses. We're trying to cope with this, and we at ISQI, we believe in the importance of this online event, that we make it free and available for anyone in the world who wants to learn something new and get to know new people, right? So thank you for joining, and please remember that we are live in many social media channels. So if you have any questions or any comment, you can just write it down and we'll give it to the presenter. And well, today I am very happy. Is Fernando Valera. Hi, Fernando.
Hi, Agustina. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Loud and clear.
I thought I had lost you. Sorry.
No, I'm still here.
So Fernando is part of the founding team of Visure Solutions, and he's currently the CTO. He is in Silicon Valley. You moved there in 2012, right?
Correct. Yes. 8 years
Perfect.
ago.
Yeah, very exciting. and he leads the development of innovative solutions for safety critical and regulated environments, primarily in the space of requirements. And he is one of the trainers for one of the courses on for IREF, for international requirements engineering. So we are very happy to have him here. And welcome, Fernando, and thank you for being here with us.
Well, first of all, thank you, Agustina, and thank you, ISQI, for organizing these days. I think it's amazing that you guys have been able to put this together, throughout this pandemic, and available for everybody, regardless of their location. I think a lot of people are benefiting from this vast knowledge sharing. I think some of the presentations have been really amazing. And thank you all for connecting. Today, I will be talking about the future of requirements management, especially amidst the spread and the aftermath of COVID-19. We are living unprecedented times, and we've made a little bit of a thought process, and I will be sharing with you our ideas about how requirements management will evolve in the next couple of years. So first of all, Agustina made a fantastic introduction, so I won't spare more time on that. As she mentioned, Visure CTO, 17 years in the field, and I'm currently working with companies both in Europe and the US, even though I'm also involved in deployments in Asia and the other Americas, so Central and South America. Just a little bit about Visure. So my organization is the manufacturer of Visure Requirements ALM. It's an innovative ALM tool. So basically, we focus on requirements management, task management, defect tracking, and so on. And well, I'm glad to announce that we have been nominated the first requirements management tool several years in a row. So pretty happy about that. Our headquarters are in San Francisco, California, and that's where I am physically located, even though in these times you can't really tell who people are. We're all distributed, and that's part of what I'm going to talk about. And as part of it, we're all working from home. The San Francisco office, well, all the offices in San Francisco are kind of closed, except for essential businesses. So we get to see each other through platforms like this one. So what is it that we have noticed throughout the past years, and what do we think the market will be in the next upcoming years? So the first thing is that you have to stop thinking of products and tools. So that is something that we have seen in the majority of our customers, that they started off developing components, especially in the safety critical environment. They moved on to develop different product lines of components. And at a certain point, they decided to actually put them together and build a product on their own. And each step has its own hurdles and struggles. Well, right now, we have to stop that mentality to move to a more service-oriented mentality. For instance, and these are examples that most of you will be very familiar with. So, for instance, Uber is the world's largest company, but owns no vehicles. Facebook is the world's most popular media provider, but creates no content, especially meaningful now in the middle of the elections. We've had a lot of, let's say, controversy in the sense of what's the role of Facebook being such a powerful media, right? And Airbnb owns no real estate. Alibaba has no inventory. But I would actually extend this to other companies. Tesla, for instance. You buy Tesla, but you are constantly receiving updates. A week ago, they deployed their own artificial intelligence and autonomous driving software. So even though you might have bought the car last year, they keep pushing what feels like new cars. So several friends have Teslas, and every couple of weeks it's like, wow, I have this new feature in the tool. The feature in the car, which sounded like pretty crazy years ago. Well, this is not the future, but I would say that it's the present. So I would like to give you another example. So for instance, it's a very well-known example that, for instance, companies like Airbus or Boeing, they do not manufacture their own engines and aircraft turbines. They actually acquire them from Rolls-Royce, or they get them from Rolls-Royce. That does not mean that Rolls-Royce sells the engines. What they do is that they lease the engines. They are providing a service. And what they're selling is thrust and miles. So you travel more, you pay more. You travel less, you pay less. So the interesting thing about this is, how do we transition from that to even a more services-oriented organization? Well, the thing is that if you're able to do that, you will be able to transition to an added business value proposition. For instance, what they're doing is that the real money, is in the maintenance. And for all of you that have cars, you know that maintenance is a big deal in it. Same applies to turbines and aircraft engines. So what they're doing is that, because they have they're leasing the engine, they have a telemetry that indicates where the turbine is at any given moment. And applying certain artificial intelligence, they can actually predict the maintenance based on how the engine is performing, comparing it with other engines. And they do that over all the engines in the world. So when they predict, what they do is that they send, or they ship the piece that they think is going to be faulty straight to the airport where the airplane is heading to. What that creates is a very reactive service, because the aircraft is arriving and they will have the piece that will most likely fail, and it's already there. So they just change it in a couple hours, and their downtime is close to zero. Whereas in the past, they would just get to an airport, the piece would fail, and then they would have to wait until the piece is shipped, replaced, and you end up with an aircraft that cannot be profitable for 3 days, for instance, which is a disaster. So in that scenario, who wouldn't actually hire the services? It's kind of a must. That's where they excel. But if we think of products, then this has no meaning in there. So actually, this is pretty recent. I've seen many organizations, and this is the .mlpf is coming out of the Department of Defense here in the US, but I've seen many organizations starting to apply it. And I would say that many non-military organizations are profiting of this type of approach. So what is this approach? Well, the approach is that you have to start thinking on providing capabilities. So for instance, providing, let's say, a given service. When you start thinking about this, you have to think about a whole range of areas. And those areas are defined in the .mlpf in this given guideline, right? So for instance, they describe what the doctrine is, what the organization the way in which the organization has to behave in order to provide that capability, what kind of training do you need to provide in order for that capability to be successful, the type of material that needs to be provided, the leadership and education personnel, and also when you start thinking about a service, people are part of that service. So we are no longer selling an outcome of the company. What we're doing is that we're selling our organization. The entire organization works as the product, right? So this is a very a comprehensive set of areas that need to be taken into account to achieve that capability. So in terms of requirements management tools, what we see is that, of course, organizations try to gather everything that has to do with all those areas into Word documents, Excel documents, but at the end of the day, it ends up being a massive amount of data that is disorganized, or not everybody knows what the latest version of the computers that we have to deploy are, or the system requirements. So what we see is that requirements management tools are becoming more and more important to keep all that information in one single place, one database that everybody can access. They can have the latest version of it. And in that case, well, Visure is what we are providing in that sense. And actually, you will see that one of the results of COVID is that my coffee mug looks like a beer mug, but I promise it's beer. Being in Silicon Valley, it's 7 a.m. So I promise this is just coffee. I won't tell if it's only coffee or something else, but it's definitely coffee. Very good. So how do we heat a moving target? Because now we have to be more responsive to the market than ever before. And actually, our product might be a product that we feel it's fantastic, with a cherry on the cake. Imagine we can have, instead of the cherry on the cake, we have the roof on the house, and we think it's a fantastic product. We just love it. But actually, it might not be suitable for the service we intend to provide, just because we missed some requirements here and there. So actually, when we start looking at organizations, what we see is that requirements become obsolete very quickly. Actually, 1 to 3% become obsolete per month, which, if you think about it, it's just crazy. Like everything is moving so fast, but actually things are accelerating. They're not stabilizing, especially with the use of artificial intelligence. And believe me, this will get even worse in a couple of years, let's say 5 to 10 years, when we have the first quantum computers. It's going to be crazy. So things are not going to get easier. So how do we deal with those obsolete requirements, trying to hit some market needs, right? So the needs change, and we need to be able to provide a service that adapts to those needs. So I think many of the organizations have figured that out. What we provide is a set of hardware, or whether that's a computer or a car, and software becomes the key component to actually be able to meet those needs in a very agile way. Okay? However, one of the key things in that area is traceability. So traceability is what's going to help you guarantee that the user needs are actually met by our system and our service. So traceability usually helps us identify, for instance, in a document, something affects other documents, and essentially allows us to answer questions like, do we still meet all the customer needs or all the market needs? Or do we need to change our tests, or do the same apply? Or all the requirements, are we testing everything? Is everything that is needed actually implemented in our whole capabilities? The organization ready for that? And is all of the source code and all of the system tested? So traceability is an essential piece in this puzzle, right? So what we see is that organizations will have to establish rigorous traceability processes and be able to perform impact analysis on a regular basis. Change impact analysis and change management will be key also to be able to adapt. And again, tools like Visure Requirements ALM definitely help in this process by not only establishing and maintaining traceability, but also performing change impact analysis, letting you know if something changes, all the aspects that are changing, and or all the elements that are affected, and so on. Good. So that is, I wouldn't say that that's the future of requirements management. That is the present. The world was already changing before COVID, right? COVID just made it more interesting, to put it in a way. So one of the obvious things in which our world has changed nowadays is remote work. So the majority of us is working from home, and unless you're an essential worker, and we had the idea that things would get back to normal during summer, but of course this is a flu, so obviously a second wave would happen. So we're all back home. So how does that affect, or what's our perspective of how this affects our organizations and requirements management in particular? Well, the first thing that we see in our customers is that even though they were already functionally distributed, and we had organizations working in the US with testing teams and development teams in China, and several R&D in Europe, those distributions were per department or per function. However, teams were very cohesively organized and working usually from the same location. That is no longer the case. Now we don't even see our colleagues that we were working with. So the teams working on the same aspects are distributed. So how does that affect our system? Well, we no longer receive updates in the coffee machine. We can no longer just walk around to our coworker and ask them, how's this thing coming along? So even though we thought that was not a big deal, for those of us who have been working from home for years, it is a big deal. It is a big deal because you have to establish that connection, and also you have to build that trust. I would say that Agile also has a big component of trust. It has a social aspect to it, right? So the organizations have had to actually implement solutions to filling that gap. So they're using, and we can see the myriad of tools that we have nowadays. So collaboration tools, and now we have not only Zoom, we had WebEx, Skype, but now we have Teams. Now Facebook has the Facebook Rooms. WhatsApp has the same thing. Every week I'm installing a new one, to the extent that someone calls me, it's like, well, which one is ringing? And then I just have to work. It's like, okay, no, actually it's my phone. So we have to be aware that collaboration tools are trying to fill in a gap in playing an essential role in the communication process, but we're missing the non-verbal communication. In many cases, we have the camera, but there is a psychological effect that happens by the fact that sometimes the camera is out of sync for a second. So our brain has a huge problem trying to process an audio that is faster than the actual image. And actually, we get exhausted very fast. So we have to be aware of the fact that these collaboration tools, they are just tools, but we have to be mindful on the way we use them, right? So we have to make sure that we're combining like email for the right purpose of emails, cameras and online meetings for the right purpose of online meetings, and meetings will be more important than ever before for the right purpose. So don't forget that a fool with a tool is still a fool. The same thing applies. We will still have our friendly colleagues, the colleagues that we cannot get along with, the colleagues that are very analytical, very emotional, and we have to actually understand that dynamic, right? And again, what we see is that organizations are deploying a myriad of tools to actually compensate all that. And again, Visure provides a lot of capabilities for the collaboration, like a chat kind of commenting on requirements, in order to make sure that all those conversations are actually gathered somewhere, right? So that is a key aspect. And the third aspect related to this type of situation is the consolidation and automation of development processes. And I'll take a sip of my coffee / something else. Okay, so the consolidation and automation of development process is an area that we see organizations are spending a lot of time and putting a lot of emphasis right now. So what does that mean? Well, what this means is that we were relying, or organizations that did not have very well-defined processes, we're relying on personal connections to filling those gaps in the processes. So for instance, you would actually call someone to your office and ask them, it's like, hey, can you please do this and do that? And by the way, this is the post-it, take this, I've written down this couple of things, and I'm gonna go to your desk tomorrow and I'm gonna see how well you're doing. Obviously, that's no longer possible. So many of those processes have just broken up into pieces because that human factor is no longer there. So what we see is that organizations are running to actually finalize or fine-tune those processes, defining the responsibilities, defining all the different steps, and defining the tools. So what we see is that those larger organizations that did not have the processes are kind of struggling at this point. And what we see is that they are adapting. Another very interesting thing is that we see it especially in smaller organizations, but it also applies to smaller teams in larger organizations. So what we see in some organizations is that a lot of customers are relying on the human factor and to learn the process. So for instance, whenever you get somebody on board, there is usually an onboarding process. So this onboarding process is about teaching people how to follow a process and helping them understand the philosophy of a company. So this is no longer there. And you cannot learn by observation, which we have seen was a big portion of the onboarding process. So when processes are not well defined and well written, new people and new employees will have a hard time to actually understand what is that philosophy of the organization. Are we more quality-oriented organization? Are we more of a get it done organization? Release, fail fast, and try again type of organization. But also new employees, they don't get they don't get to observe how other colleagues are defining that process. So what we see is that it's very difficult to enroll new users, and smaller organizations are struggling with that. So those two aspects are related in the sense that the only solution to those is defining the processes. There's no silver bullet here. There's nothing we can do. We just have to sit down, define all the different steps and move on. What we see is that organizations are struggling also to adopt either a full agile process or stick with a V life cycle. So especially in the regulated environment where you are kind of required to follow a V life cycle, it's not mandatory, but the documentation that you're required to provide comes out naturally when you are following a V life cycle. But if you're following an agile process, it's kind of more complicated to generate. However, everybody's transitioning to an agile process. So how is it that I want to work agile, but I need to generate the documentation of a V life cycle? So what it turns out that the organizations are starting to merge all the processes from all the teams into a gigantic hybrid interconnected process. What this means is that you might follow a traditional V life cycle when it gets to project management or a service-oriented. And if you remember the .mlpf kind of structure that I mentioned earlier, where in order to provide a capability, we have to have several elements into consideration: the doctrine, organization, training material, and so on and so on. Usually we might actually go a level down following this V life cycle, but then when it gets to the software piece, then yes, we might follow an agile process. Why not? And that team might even follow a pure agile process. However, let's say the leadership team don't even mention the word like agile from a pure process perspective, right? So what we see is that companies are starting to figure out that sweet spot between both waterfall, agile, and also existing processes in the organization that actually work. So what we see is that organizations are starting to merge all of them, and for that purpose, they do need to use tools. So just as a couple of of comments on what we provide at Visure is that we are providing what we call the data models. So data models are ways of not only representing the different artifacts that are involved in our process, like for instance, I don't know if you can see it in the diagram, but each one of those boxes is a different document or a set of elements, and then we define what is the refinement process. So for instance, we can go from a marketing document or a product requirements document, a user needs document, then we can go a step beyond to a system requirements document. From system requirements, we can go to software, electrical, mechanical, whatever elements we define in our V life cycle. And then at the right-hand side, we will have the quintessential V life cycle tests, right? So we will have all those elements at the right-hand side. However, within the same project and associated to another department, but interconnected to the previous diagram, we can have another diagram representing, for instance, the agile process. So we can see that the same software requirements that appeared in the previous diagram might now appear related to the product backlog, and the product backlog is actually divided into epics, user stories, tasks, tests, and so on. Very good. And actually, sorry about this. I'm missing one slide for some reason. So what I'll do is that I'll just explain the fourth. I'll explain the fourth aspect that we see the market is evolving towards to. And this is the artificial intelligence. So what we see, well, the artificial intelligence and the struggle for certification. So this might apply to only a subset of you, but what we see is that artificial intelligence is being applied to absolutely everything. It's one of the areas with the greatest development, and we see that it is being applied to machine learning, deep learning. Is being applied to things like audio, video, photography. Now you can see that in Photoshop, you no longer have to be an expert, but you can just remove a person, and Photoshop will recreate the background automatically for you using this artificial intelligence. You can just replace the sky and say, generate some clouds, and the picture will look like if it was cloudy. You can just put whoever's face into somebody else's face. Even we use that for audio. You can actually simulate anybody else's voice as well, right? So this is also being used in automotive. And the interesting thing about autonomous driving, and this is an area where we're participating in heavily, is that artificial intelligence, and you will be familiar with it, learns. So we have gained the capability to teach algorithms how to learn. And this is interesting. We've taught algorithms how to learn and become better. So actually, an algorithm that did not know how to play chess managed to beat the world expert by practicing with its own in one day. So in one day, an algorithm can learn to become the best chess player in the world. So we're using those algorithms to learn how to drive. So chess has, 20 rules? It's easy, but driving has hundreds of thousands of non-spoken rules. Like, what do you do when there's a deer? What do you do when there's an aggressive driver? Those sort of things. The interesting thing about these algorithms is that they learn on a daily basis. So when it gets to reacting, they will apply all that experience, as we humans do as well. So today, if there is an obstacle in front of us, the car will stop. But the following day, because there's different weather conditions, the car might decide to actually swerve and avoid the obstacle. So from a regulatory perspective, this is a gigantic challenge in the sense that when we had non-artificial intelligence systems, we had a requirement specification that would indicate, if you do this, the system will behave like this. So you would write a test, you test the system, the expected outcome meets what the actual outcome is, then the test passed. Unfortunately, or fortunately, with with autonomous driving, the expected outcome is unknown. We just don't know how the car is going to behave. Is it going to stop? Perhaps. Is it going to go backwards? Perhaps. It will decide. So it is right now, as of today, it's very, very difficult to actually test the car to guarantee that it will behave perfectly well in all circumstances. So the challenge at this point is, are we going to guarantee or trying to guarantee that an autonomous system will behave, and I'm talking about cars, but this applies to all autonomous systems, are going to guarantee that the system will behave correctly in every single situation, which is impossible or almost impossible? Are we going to guarantee that it behaves correctly in a minimum set of circumstances? Or are we just going to trust that it's going to work correctly? So this is one of the biggest challenges that we have in the requirements engineering field. One of the things that we are doing is that we're integrating automatic generation of scenarios. So there are applications that will simulate scenarios of a car. You plug the algorithm into a tool, we start generating hundreds of thousands of possible situations and how that algorithm will behave in those circumstances. And those scenarios are generated out of requirements, and out of requirements where you indicate how the conditions should be, right? And we'll see if governments decide to actually go down this road and regulate this scenario, regulate these systems in this way in the future. So we're almost there. I would like to finish the presentation with a just a quote that I find especially relevant nowadays, even though it is a pretty old quote. And I think we are going through unprecedented times. It's not necessarily bad. There's a lot of people that say that there are no bad experiences. You just learn from them. So change is not optional. Change is optional. You don't have to change. We don't have to actually adapt to the new normal, right? Especially because survival as an organization is not mandatory. For instance, we know it with Nokia. Nokia was doing all the right things because one was not able to adapt to the new trends. However, I will also say that change is always a chance for new opportunities. So the survival of the fittest, it's not just the fittest at that specific moment, but it's the survival of whoever is able to adapt the best to new circumstances. So bear that in mind. We have new needs in our market, new needs in our colleagues, and we just have to adapt and change. And this will be an opportunity to become better people, better organizations, and become overall better at what we do. So I think we're just exactly at 7:40. I would like to thank you all for those that attended the presentation. I hope it was insightful and interesting. Again, my name is Fernando Valera. You can reach me. Feel free to reach out to me either through email, LinkedIn, whatever means you would like to. And we're going to leave a couple of minutes in case there are questions. So, Agustina, if you're still there, do we have any question?
Sorry, I was muted. This happens all the time, right? I think it will be the sentence of the year, the most common. I'm mute or you're mute or something like that. It's yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for taking your time. Thank you so much for being on time, because it was perfect. Your timing was perfect. And yes, we do have a couple of questions. We have comments. I'm going to show it here. So some are saying, "Hey guys," can you see this?
So I'm gonna.
Am I gone? Yeah. So comment saying hello, hi, how are you? So we're gonna say thank you and hello to everyone. I have a question from one group who's asking, what is the biggest challenge of testing artificial intelligence system?
Yes. Yeah, I think that is the several hour question.
Yeah.
So
for next time, maybe next time.
Believe me, it's a very complex. But the biggest challenge is the fact that when you have in traditional testing, you have you define a test, an expected outcome, then you test and you get an actual outcome. However, with artificial intelligence, you don't even know what the expected outcome is. You cannot tell how the system will behave. So it's impossible to actually define the test case with the expected outcome. That's the biggest challenge.
Okay. Wow, it's a big challenge, because if you don't know what the result is, I imagine it's not easy. And we have another question. I'm not sure if it's clear. Is how is requirements engineering supporting? I think maybe supporting the new outcomes yeah.
Good. So, we covered several areas during the presentation. I would say that requirements engineering basically support all of these challenges, first of all, by defining what is it that we need and what is it that we're going to do to support what we need, and making sure that both are aligned. What do we need? What are we going to develop? And what we are delivering. And even though it seems very obvious, it's very easy to actually, when we get into the development and we get into the engineering, to actually miss those very simple connections. Right?
So it helps you like set up the plan and know where you're going to, because
Correct.
that's so I had I was in a talk 2 days ago with Stefan Sturm from the airport, and I also, so one of the questions is, how does requirements engineering fit into an agile world where everything is happening so fast and you don't need time to plan everything? And I think it's quite a challenge, although a lot of people need to understand that it helps you set up the plan and see how you're going to work and what are the tools that you have, what you have now, and how, without the requirements of what you need, you don't know what you're going to do.
Correct. Agile does not mean not planning or not keeping an eye. It's just getting to where you want to get to in an iterative way.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you so much. So for everyone there, thank you also for joining and for watching. And we will be again with everyone in 15 minutes for another talk. So thank you so much, Fernando. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Agustina and ISQI for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, and thank you all for watching. Bye.